Imagine you just lived your dream. You're on stage, the lights are blazing, the crowd is roaring, and standing beside you is one of the most famous men on the planet. Now imagine that same dream turning into something so dark, so confusing, so deeply threatening that you find yourself standing in a hotel room reading a handwritten note that makes your blood run cold. A note that tells you someone has been in your room, someone knows your name, someone is planning to come back. And instead of help, what you get is silence, then blame, then a phone call telling you that you're fired. That is not a movie plot. That is, according to a lawsuit filed in December 2025, the story of Brian King Joseph, a 33-year-old violinist, a man who competed on national television and nearly won, a man who was handed what looked like the opportunity of a lifetime and what allegedly happened to him while on tour with Will Smith. This story broke quietly over the new year. It did not get the volume it deserved. So today we are going to tell it properly, from the very beginning. Let's go back to where the story starts, because the beginning matters just as much as the end. Brian King Joseph is not a household name, but he should be. In 2018, he walked onto the stage of America's Got Talent and did something nobody expected. He played the electric violin while wearing a device that helped him manage a nerve condition that affects his legs. He was raw, he was brilliant, he finished in the top 3. And after that, he built a career as a professional musician, performing, producing, composing, earning his place in the industry the hard way. Then in November 2024, his phone rang. According to a lawsuit filed in Los Angeles County Superior Court, Will Smith's team reached out to Brian King Joseph and offered him a performance slot at a show in San Diego. Smith subsequently invited Joseph to join his 2025 tour and to play on his forthcoming album. For a musician of Joseph's background, this was not just a job. It was a doorway into an entirely different level of the industry. He said yes, and in the weeks that followed, the relationship between the two men began to develop. They spent time together, they talked. Smith allegedly told Joseph, "You and I have such a special connection that I don't have with anyone else." The lawsuit characterizes these words not as simple friendship, but as something more calculated. The complaint describes what Joseph's legal team calls a pattern of behavior they would later name in court as deliberate grooming. Now that is a serious word, grooming. And it is a word that appears in the legal complaint not once, but multiple times. The suit accuses Smith of predatory behavior and deliberately grooming and priming Mr. Joseph for further sexual exploitation. But at this point in the story, December 2024, Brian King Joseph didn't necessarily see it that way. He saw a superstar who believed in his talent. He saw opportunity. He felt the warmth of being chosen. And so when the tour began, he showed up ready to perform. It is March 2025, Las Vegas, the neon city that never sleeps. Joseph joined the first leg of the tour for a show in Las Vegas, where hotel rooms had been booked for the band and crew members. This matters because who booked those rooms and who had access to them becomes central to everything that happens next. Joseph claimed to place his room key in his bag, which was left in a van responsible for transporting the cast and crew. Then, during the course of the day, something strange happened. At a Las Vegas hotel in March 2025, King's bag, which contained his room key, went missing for several hours before it was returned to him by the tour management team. Hours. His bag was gone for hours, and when it came back, nobody offered much of an explanation. After a rehearsal that night, Brian King Joseph returned to his hotel room. What he found inside that room changed everything. The suit alleges someone had unlawfully entered Joseph's hotel room and left wipes, a beer bottle, a backpack, a bottle of HIV medication, and hospital discharge paperwork with another person's name unknown to him. Items that didn't belong to him. Items that made no logical sense being there, and then the note. A handwritten note, addressed to him, by name. It read, "Brian, I'll be back no later than 5:30. Just us," followed by a drawn heart, signed Stone F. The complaint states, plaintiff feared that an unknown individual would soon return to his room to engage in sexual acts with plaintiff. Read that again slowly. He was not confused, he was not uncertain, he was afraid. He believed that someone someone with access to his room, someone connected to the tour, was planning to return to that room and assault him. And here is what Brian King Joseph did next, which matters enormously. He did not stay silent. He did not pack up and leave. Joseph said he reported to Smith and the touring company that someone had unlawfully entered his Las Vegas hotel room. He notified hotel security and Smith's representatives, took photos of the items, and requested a room change. He also called a local police non-emergency line to report the incident. He did everything right. Every single thing the system tells you to do when something goes wrong, he did it. Hotel security investigated, and what they found only deepened the mystery. Hotel security found no signs of forced entry into the room and said the only individuals with access to his room would have been with the management team who booked the room. No forced entry, no broken lock, no tampering. The only people who could have walked into that room were people connected to the tour. That detail sits at the center of this entire case. Now we reach the moment in this story where things go from frightening to something that, if the allegations are true, is deeply troubling about how power works in this industry. Days after Brian King Joseph reported the incident to hotel security, to police, to management, in writing, with photographs, he received a call. It was not a call offering support. It was not a call from anyone saying, "We investigated, we're taking this seriously." A representative for Smith accused Joseph of lying and told him he was being terminated. The suit quotes the representative allegedly saying in part, "Everyone is telling me that what happened to you is a lie. Nothing happened, and you made the whole thing up." And then, still according to the lawsuit, "So tell me, why did you lie and make this up?" That phrasing, sit with it for a moment. Not, "We looked into this," not, "We found nothing," but a direct accusation. You lied. You fabricated this. You made it up. Joseph was fired from the tour after the incident, with management stating the tour was moving in a different direction, despite another violinist replacing his role on the tour. Moving in a different direction. But they hired another violinist immediately, so the direction hadn't changed, only the person playing the violin had. The lawsuit states that Joseph suffered humiliation, mental and physical distress, and anxiety as a result of the defendant's actions. Joseph said in the complaint that he experienced PTSD and mental illness as a result of the termination. He lost the income, he lost the opportunity, he lost the album credits, and he carried the weight of what happened in that Las Vegas hotel room without a public word for months. Here is where the story pivots. And this is the part that changes everything you thought you understood about it. For most of 2025, this was invisible. Will Smith completed his Based on a True Story World Tour. He performed in Morocco. He performed in Germany. He performed at massive venues across the globe. The tour was a comeback narrative. The man who had been humiliated at the Oscars, who had retreated from public life, who had released an album that told his story and dared people to judge it, was back, and audiences responded. Brian King Joseph, the man who had been inside that world for only weeks, was nowhere in the story. He had been erased, fired, replaced, discredited by the very team he had trusted. And yet, in late December 2025, something shifted. In December 2025, Joseph shared a video on Instagram that hinted at events he said occurred earlier that year while working on a major tour. Earlier this year, I was hired to be a performer on a major tour with somebody who was huge in the industry, Joseph said in the video. He described feeling proud of the opportunity, before adding, "Unfortunately, some things happened." He was careful. He was measured. He knew there were legal proceedings underway, but he said something in that video that anchored the entire statement in something bigger than his own case. Joseph captioned the video as an important PSA and said, "Getting fired or getting blamed or shamed or threatened or anything like that simply for reporting sexual misconduct or safety threats at work is not okay." He wasn't just speaking for himself. He was speaking for every person who had ever reported something, been dismissed, and then been punished for their reporting. 4 days later, on December 30th, 2025, the lawsuit was filed. The complaint names Will Smith directly. It names his company, Trey Ball Studios Management, and it lays out charges that include retaliation in violation of the Fair Employment and Housing Act, wrongful termination in violation of public policy, and sexual harassment under California law. Smith, along with other co-defendants, is accused of retaliation in violation of the Fair Employment and Housing Act, retaliation pursuant to California Labor Code, wrongful termination in violation of public policy, Bane Act violation, Wrongful Act violation, and sexual harassment in violation of the Fair Employment and Housing Act. The Bane Act. That is a California civil rights law that specifically protects individuals from threats or coercion used to interfere with their rights. The fact that it appears in this complaint is significant. Joseph's legal team is not simply alleging that a workplace was hostile. They are alleging that his civil rights were threatened. Will Smith's legal team responded swiftly. On January 1st, 2026, Smith's attorney Alan B. Grotsky issued a statement. Mr. Joseph's allegations concerning my client are false, baseless, and reckless. They are categorically denied, and we will use all legal means available to address these claims and to ensure that the truth is brought to light. Strong words, categorical denial, and the promise of legal action in return. Then, in late February 2026, Will Smith's team escalated. Smith filed the motion asking a judge to throw out the sexual harassment lawsuit, with his lawyer alleging the filing was a desperate attempt to shake the star down for cash. In that motion to strike, Smith's team argued that Joseph admits he doesn't know who Stone F could be, and stated they were ready to provide witnesses who would explain Joseph wasn't invited to continue on with the group because he behaved erratically, was difficult to work with, and made the other members of Smith's band feel uncomfortable. Ultimately, Smith's side called this a frivolous lawsuit and an attempted money grab. And Brian King, Joseph's attorney, fired back. A jury's ultimate determination matters more to us than Mr. Smith's opinion of this case. Two sides, two stories, one courtroom ahead. But here is the thing that this case forces us to confront. The thing that exists beneath the legal filings, beneath the motion to dismiss, beneath the competing statements from competing lawyers. We are talking about Will Smith. Not just a famous person, not just a celebrity, a man who for 3 decades was the most carefully curated image of likable, lovable, harmless charisma in American entertainment. The Fresh Prince, the blockbuster king, the family man, the guy who was so safe that corporations lined up to put his face on their products, their campaigns, their brands. And then in March 2022, on the most watched stage in Hollywood, he walked across a floor and struck another man on live television. That moment cracked something, not just in his career, but in the image. The carefully constructed story of who Will Smith was began to show fractures. He retreated. He released an album. He named it based on a true story. He went on the road, and the narrative that followed was about redemption, about a man reclaiming himself. Now, a former member of that very tour, the Redemption Tour, is in court alleging that behind the scenes, something very different was taking place. And the question that hangs over all of it, the question that a jury will eventually have to answer, is this: what really happened in that hotel room in Las Vegas? Who is Stone F? The lawsuit doesn't name that person. The hotel found no forced entry. The only people with key access were connected to the management team, and yet the identity of the person who left that note, that backpack, those items, remains, as of this telling, unknown.
What we know is this: Brian King Joseph reported something alarming. He reported it immediately. He reported it to multiple parties. He photographed evidence. He called the police. And within days, he was told he was a liar and fired. Brian King Joseph allegedly suffered, quote, severe emotional distress after the incident, the complaint states. Defendant's actions caused plaintiff severe emotional distress, economic loss, reputational harm, and other damages. Plaintiff was also harmed as a result of the stress of losing his job. His health deteriorated, causing major physiological damage. Plaintiff suffered from PTSD and other mental illness as a result of the termination. A man went on tour, a musician, and came home broken. Whether Will Smith is legally responsible for that, whether the jury sides with Joseph's account or Smith's denial, is something that California court system will decide. But what this case has already done is put a spotlight on something that exists in every industry where power is concentrated in the hands of a very few famous people. What happens to the people below them who see something they shouldn't? What happens when they speak? Who protects them? In this case, according to the complaint, nobody did. As of March 2026, the case is active. The motion to dismiss has been filed. Joseph's team has stated publicly that a jury determination is what they are seeking. The proceedings continue. We do not yet know how this ends. We do not yet know who Stone F is. We do not yet know what a jury will make of a note left in a hotel room, a bag that went missing for hours, and a man who says he was fired for telling the truth. But we do know this. Brian King Joseph came forward. He didn't do it quietly, or carefully, or safely. He did it knowing that the name on the other side of his complaint was one of the most powerful in Hollywood. He did it after months of silence, after PTSD, after economic loss, after watching the man he accuses complete a world tour and receive a standing ovation. He spoke anyway. And the one question this story leaves unanswered, the question that will haunt you long after this video ends, is not whether the lawsuit succeeds. It's this: how many others didn't speak at all?